Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from the world of media and films from Nashville, Tennessee, Mr. David A. Fischette. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. David is the Chief Executive Officer and Chief Creative at Go West Creative. He has produced multiple film and television projects, including the Emmy Award-winning television series, My Generation, the independent comedy film Rock, Paper, Scissors, and has directed and produced the New York City Film Festival award-winning thriller Gods of Accident. David is also a member of the YWCA Board of Directors. So, David, before we talk about Go West Creative, tell me a little bit about your own journey in brief.
You know, it's interesting. I was a theater guy, right, in high school, and I wasn't very good, and I couldn't really get cast into any shows when I would audition. I was the youngest of four kids, and we all went to the same high school. In the middle of my second year of high school, I transferred schools to another high school in the same general area that had a very robust theater department, and they had already cast their big spring musical production. But I went to the director and just said, "Hey, I'm new here. Is there any way I can help with anything at this thing?" And he said, Fischette, are you related to Bob Fischette? I'm like, yeah, that's my older brother.
Wow.
Unbeknownst to me, my older brother had been doing lighting design for this man and for his high school, but also his professional theater company. He said, well, if you're Bob Fischette's brother, you're my assistant director.
Amazing.
And that thing at 15 years old put me on a path to want to be a producer and a director. And that just chance moment of this guy, opening an opportunity to a 15-year-old kid that had no experience changed the whole course of my life. And so when I was 20 years old, I started as a musician, had a band, and a financial backer had bought us a big sound system that we didn't use that often. So I got the idea to get a couple of turntables and start a mobile DJ company. And that's how this company started 39 years ago as a mobile DJ company. And now we're, one of the largest boutique shops in the US, as creative agencies.
Quite amazing. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah.
For that 15-year-old. Wonderful. But did you ever go in front of the camera, or you were always behind?
I did a little bit of acting here and there, and I did. There's a horror film out there called Neon Maniacs that I'm in, and there's did some commercial work and some music video stuff, but I just felt more comfortable telling other people what to do and what they weren't doing right than to actually have to do it myself.
Amazing.
Right.
Thank you. What an amazing story. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
So, David, let's talk about Go West Creative. Tell me a little bit about it, and how has Go West Creative evolved?
Yeah, right. Well, all right, from that mobile DJ company, we started, and we always focused on corporate business, not so much social. We didn't do a lot of bar mitzvahs. We did some weddings, but that really wasn't our focus. It was always corporate. And then it was, all right, well, maybe we can bring a little additional audio. Maybe we bring some lighting in. Maybe we bring some video. Then it was like, well, there's video screens. Maybe we can create some content to put on the screens. Back then we called it multimedia. And then, the company kept growing in its service base. And then about 20 years ago, we really made the aha moment that really we weren't an event company. We were a creative agency. We just happened to play in large events and in production. So having the live event side of the business, the straight marketing agency side of the business, and then of course now we have 4 television broadcast studios here in Nashville as well. So it has grown substantially. And as I mentioned to you before we started, COVID was actually a really good thing for us. We had at in 2020, we ended up having our best year in our 36-year history at that point. And then that increased in 21. And then in 2022, we had 250% growth over the year before. So COVID was actually a really good thing for us. So you end up having a little bit of what we refer to as survivor's guilt, because a lot of people in our industry were shutting down, scaling back, laying people off, and we were building.
Fantastic. So for my viewers and listeners, David, walk us through the process of how you go about a new project from ideation to execution.
Sure. It's so interesting because we do so many different types of projects, right? But it's always kind of the same process. It's a lot more listening and asking questions than telling, right? Because I don't want to purport that I understand a client's business better than they do, right?
Correct.
And should I immediately tell them what they should be doing? So I want to listen to not only what they want for this project, but who their company is, who they are, what's success, what have been some failures, right? Just really try to learn like the culture of the business, the history of the business, so that I can help them communicate what it is they're trying to communicate to whatever their stakeholders are. And so we have an incredible team of really smart, much smarter, much more creative people than myself that work here at Go West, that we just sit around and ask the questions, and then really ask the big questions. What does success look like for the client? What do they really want to have happen, right? And then how do we back into that process from there?
Thank you.
And then the creative brief.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about the word that your name, Go West. Does it have anything to do with Hollywood being on the west of Tennessee?
No, actually, we were in Los Angeles. We were headquartered in Los Angeles for 30 years. That's where we started the company. So people always ask me, you moved to Tennessee, you moved your headquarters to Tennessee. Didn't you go east? And I'm like, well, we went the long way. But actually Go West isn't about a direction. We actually have it on the wall, right? As you walk in here, it says Go West. It's not a direction, it's a state of mind. And so right here behind me, it says, find your true West. That's kind of our slogan, because what we feel is if your true north, right? Your true north is your purpose in life, that thing that you get up every morning, the reason you're placed on this planet. We feel like your true West is your sense of curiosity, your exploration and adventure that makes you find creative new paths to accomplish your true north, right? And so it's kind of like the pioneers here in the U.S., right? That turned their back on the sunrise and they headed towards the sunset.
Correct.
They went west, right?
Correct.
So,
correct.
yeah.
Well, now of course things have changed, but I remember when I was growing up, Go West meant all the technical, or the graduates of engineers and the business school would go west, which was to the US, where the streets were supposed to have been paved with gold.
Oh, they are. It's just dirt on top of it now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my next question to you, David, is how do you ensure that the work that you do remains innovative, unique, and memorable for clients and their audiences?
Sure. Yeah. So again, it comes back to the asking of the question, and the fortunate part and probably the unfortunate part for our shareholders and board of directors is that we don't have a thing that is really duplicatable, right? We don't have a product that we sell 1,000,000 times. We have 1,000,000 products that are completely different, that everyone is very, very custom. So it really is, we start from scratch on every project and go, what are the right tools, right innovation, what's the right technology, entertainment, whatever those elements are to accomplish this client's goals on this specific project. So we're always looking for what's new and hot and fun and or what's old and can come back again and be reworked, right? My favorite thing with clients is you pitch them an idea and they're like, oh, we tried that once and it didn't work, it was a horrible failure. And so how did you try it? Why don't we, let's dissect what happened and why it was a
Correct.
failure. Because maybe the idea
Mm,
wasn't a bad idea. Maybe the execution was flawed.
mm,
And how can we reapproach that and make sure that we have flawless execution, you know?
Very interesting.
Mm.
My next question to you is that, you've been in this business for over 3.5 decades.
Mm.
As you look back, how has the industry changed over the years, particularly when you look at technology and social media?
Yeah. Well, so many things, the first thing that comes up, how the industry changes, it was a lot. There were a lot of mom and pops in this industry, that phrase, right? A lot of very, very small, family type businesses. And now there are a lot of very large, multi-billion-dollar companies in our space, which is very, very, very interesting from that side. But yeah, so on social media and technology, those two things have become such a large part of every
Correct.
every experience, every live event. Let's just talk about and that side, obviously the agency side as well. But in a live event, there has to now always be some sort of a social component to that that's constantly engaging, right? We are, unfortunately, as a society, we are so tied to this little device in our hand, right?
Correct.
So we can't even sit in a ballroom for 90 minutes and keep our attention. We have to figure out ways now from the stage to communicate through the device. It's more relevant now if it's coming to me in my hands now. It feels very, very, very personal.
Correct.
So and there's some really wonderful technologies that are out there that are that are really helping use that device now to push us back into the show.
Yeah.
There's a great technology that we're using, a really wonderful company called Q Audio. Q Audio, the beginning of a conference, put up a QR code, boom, people scan that QR code and it accesses the camera on your phone. And so now we can, in the middle of a production or something like that, people can be put immediately right up onto the screen, right through their cell device. The other thing it also does is it accesses the light on your camera. So now if there's like music and things like that, it can activate a light show and sequencing and things like that. Really, really fun technology to make people feel a part of it and not actually have to hand them a device like a wrist bracelet or something like that then activates or actually their own device.
Well said. The other thing that I also wanted to get your perspective on was that I remember when I started life as a young marketing person, there used to be this communication was always big billboards and cinema halls and 3-minute films and so on. Communication has changed since you just spoke about the phone. How is communication in 1 minute or 30 seconds changing how you are approaching a lot of the projects?
So how we communicate with the clients or how we,
the communication has become very, very crisp and short now.
Right. Yeah. It's, which sometimes is a wonderful thing, right? I'm a huge believer that not every Zoom meeting has to be 30 minutes or 45 minutes or 60 minutes, right? A lot of times we can get things done in 7.5 minutes and be done. So I'm a big fan of that. And sometimes things need to be fleshed out and creative, creative discussions need to be had. But I think it's really important if your communication is short, that there's always a follow-up in writing of what those key takeaways are. Because the downside to a 30-second or 60-second, right, is clarity, right? It's like, oh, I thought you meant, or I thought you said, right? So to follow up with, here's what my takeaway was, and here's what our next steps are, right? Did I get that right? Did I miss anything? And get that sign off really is the thing that kind of buttons that thing up. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do that, but it's super important because that 30-second communication, if misinterpreted, can set you on a path that gets you very, very far away from where you're supposed to be.
Well said. My next question to you is about the metaverse. I mean, till 2 months ago, it was the hottest thing going in the world. And then, of course, Meta seems to have slowed down, but it is a reality that's going to happen, three-dimensional communication across the world in Web 3.0. How do you see the future of production, event production, and live experiences evolving in 3 dimension? I mean, someone told me that you and I could possibly be sitting in 3 dimension in a coffee shop on Mars, having another conversation sometime.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a reality. It was funny. We had actually got we had been requested to do a project for Facebook Meta, and they wanted to create a virtual community event around around the country. But they hold the technology to allow us to do that, and they would not allow us to access the technology and the platform, right? So it was an open API for us to get in there and do that. So it's really interesting. But I think, you know, as time goes on, that will open up and we'll do that. And yes, we will be able to. I think the Mars thing is fun and it's kitschy, but I think what is going to be more likely is that you and I are sitting next to each other watching Beyonce in concert, right? And now here's a live thing that is actually happening that you and I can then turn to each other and discuss, going, "Oh, that's my favorite song. I hope she does Single Ladies," or whatever it is. And we can be in relation that way. And I think that's really where the experiences are going to be, because the rest of it just kind of feels like a video game. But how do we create those human interactions in the 3D? And I think it's really exciting to be able to bridge that, because people will say, "Oh my gosh, for this event, it's going to be 400 people, and now we have to rent 400 headsets, at this event to connect them to the other 400 people over here that are in Los Angeles, and these people are in New York." But it's like, well, what is it going to cost for you to fly them? Right, that cost of the flight is probably the cost of purchasing a VR headset, right? So to save on flights, hotel, F&B for those people, I think ultimately it's going to be a cost savings, and that's what I'm seeing, really the net result coming out of COVID, right? Because people were longing for that to get back to some sort of a live connection. But we had clients that came back in 2021, end of 2021, with a big live in-person Las Vegas thing, and then come to us at the beginning of 2022 and go, "We just want to go virtual this year," not because of COVID, just because we like that concept. And so they would come in here and just rent out all of our studio space, and then to do a broadcast from here. So I think it's really, really interesting.
Amazing. And do you see any changing trends in event production or going forward that you think will become increasingly important?
Trends. Well, there's a lot in the technology, right? We talked about that a little bit. We talked about social media becoming obviously a much bigger part of everything we're doing. The VR and AR, QR codes, all those things are all things that are becoming things we use on almost every event to communicate. And it may be because I'll turn 60 next year, but the thing that I always come back to is authenticity. What are you being authentic to who you are, and are you communicating in an authentic way? You can use all the fun tools that you want, but are you being authentic? And I feel like the generation that are coming up, the workforce that is coming up now, they crave authenticity. They like the cool, but they want to make sure that you're not,
very interesting.
Full of crap, as we say here in the US.
Absolutely. So, Devan, I'm going to move to 2 or 3 questions on the film and television business. You've been a very, very successful film and TV producer. What do you find most challenging and rewarding about working in the film and television industry?
What I find most rewarding is the fact that when you create a piece of content, a TV show, a webisode, a movie, it lives on. right?
Mm.
And so much of what I do, let's say in my day-to-day job here at Go West Creative, in corporate work,
Mm.
as soon as that event is over, and the client may have spent $5 million with us, we could have
Mm.
produced a movie, right? At the end of that project, taking everything down, throwing stuff away, disassembling it, never to be seen again, right? And it's like all this work for 2 to 3 days, and then it's done. You,
Mm.
you produce a movie.
Mm.
I mean, rock paper scissors we shot,
Mm.
10 years ago, Gods of Accident, these pieces just live on, and they
Yeah.
can touch people over and over and over again, and
Mm.
new audiences, and that's what's exciting about that medium as opposed to live
Mm.
events.
Mm. Amazing. You're so right. As you were talking, I did say, reflect and say, you're so right. I mean, movies from the 30s and or before or whenever, but one can still go back and watch them.
Right.
Very,
Right.
very true. Very
Yeah.
true. So my next question is, how have your own personal experiences influenced the stories you choose to tell through film and television?
Sure. Um, I think sometimes it's just a good project that it feels nice, and you want to be associated with. But other times it's like there's something that means something really, really deeply to you. And I remember 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, I was in New York doing a big project, and I met a guy by the name of Aaron Cohen, who had been doing who was part of Jane's Addiction, left that band, and had dedicated his life to eradicating human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And this was kind of right before it became everybody who was doing human trafficking work,
Yeah.
and it was really opening my eyes
Mm-hmm.
to wait, what do you mean there's a 500,000 slaves in the US today? How can that be? And then 6 million slaves around the world. And he would tell me this plight. And I remember going back and sharing it with our creative director at the time. His name was Jamie LaForest.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamie took that whole concept of human trafficking, and he wrote Gods of Accident. And Gods of Accident is this incredible thriller, psychological thriller that I had the privilege of executive producing and directing. Um, and it's about six seemingly unrelated strangers that come together, that are kind of blackmailed to come together to play a game of Russian roulette, right? Um, but at the end of the film, you see how everybody is tied together, and you see how human trafficking was at the center of the entire thing. And so at that point, you think 10, 12 years ago, documentaries weren't as hot and as sexy as they are now. People weren't watching documentaries or something. If you're going to go to the movies, you weren't going to really go to a movie and watch a movie theater and watch a documentary, right? So I felt like I didn't want to do a documentary on human trafficking. I wanted to do a movie that would draw people into a storyline, suck them in, and at the end they had no way of looking away. They had to see the reality of what human trafficking costs. So I mean, that was a great example of something that was just like so passionate for me that we were able to create into an art form.
Amazing. Thank you. What a great story. And my last question to you, David, and this is for the thousands of people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your own amazing journey in the world of film and television and events and production, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want a lot of our viewers and listeners to take away from our conversation and from your journey?
Sure. So 3 lessons I would say on the tactical side. Backups on your backups on your backups. It's something I always say, right? What can go wrong, right? Make sure you have everything backed up, because you just want to be prepared. So that's number one. On a human side, it's what I mentioned before. It's authenticity, be true to who you are. People ask me how I build trust with clients, and I said, well, sometimes building trust with clients mean I say, no, this isn't the project for me. It's right. It's being real and being honest. And the last thing would really be in the explorer adventure side, the curiosity side, right? And I love the what if, right? What if we could do this? What are the possibilities? Exploring the possibilities of a new way of doing things, of touching people. That for me is what gets me excited.
How wonderful. And on that note, David, and your 3 amazing lessons, your tactical lesson was backups is so critical. Second, you said was the human one, which is be authentic, be true, which is so powerful. And the third one you said was what if, which is explore possibilities. Right. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. I loved what you told me about how you almost found your calling when you were 15 years old, and amazing. You know, it's always often been said that if you can make your passion your career, you will have fun every single day of your life, and you seem to have done that. Thank you for speaking to me about Go West Creative and all the amazing projects that you're doing. Thank you also for speaking to me about the film and TV business that you have been associated with, and the documentary that you were associated with. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.